Welcome to the 5th anniversary of the Helsinki Comic Festival, an event in which Spain is the guest country. First of all, I want to thank to the help and support provided by the Finnish Comic Society, the organization behind this comic festival, the Spanish Embassy in Finland, and the Foundation for the Promotion and Study of Narrative in Image. Thanks to them, it has been possible to make this event possible. Today we meet with Jaime Visedo. He born in 1982, is almost 40 years old, in Murcia. Normally he worked in the animation and draw storyboards inside the movie industry. We told before began this meeting, and he told me something. I know that this is a really nice job, but it's a really difficult to work inside because you need to spend a lot of time, focus all your energy, because the movie industry is every week you find a new movie in the movie theater, and it's impossible to maintain this movement if you don't work a lot inside. And in his CV, you see that he worked in sagas like Star Wars, in Marvel, or Fantastic Animals. But for reason that sometimes it's difficult to understand, he decided a few years ago, when he learned that he will be father, daddy, papi, Isa, or wherever you want to, depend the country you are, to be father, something like, I know exactly the feeling, because I am the same person. I don't draw, I write, but I am a father. Actually, I am a father, and in a month and a half will be another time from the second time be a father. And he decided to draw, not in the normal way of work, some kind of diary of his experience, like a rookie father, and how to learn every day. I think every second, because when before you, when your wife is pregnant, you have one idea, but when you have for the first time your baby in your home, and the nurse gives to you, in that case, put over you, and you stay with your kids or your son during 1 hour and a half, is something smaller. You don't know what to do. You see and you try to process all this information, and because I don't know you, but I accept that I am far, maybe 2 months after, because it's quite difficult. I remember when the name of my son is Bruno. When we moved to the hospital to our home, when we returned to the hospital, I remember the first week I spent a lot of time seeing Bruno in the cot. Uh, but I am not sure. I don't, exactly don't remember. I remember my feeling, but for me was some moment difficult. Not difficult, but I need to understand that this small creature is my baby, my son. Now is totally different because it's 2 years old, and he know that I am study. But I think in your case is exactly like me, because I think every parent have the same feeling. But it's a for me it's a huge challenge translate all these things, because the good thing with that is this is the comic from some way. It's like a normal notebook, because the idea is the thing is someone gives to Jaime, hello, welcome
Hello.
to,
Thank
to
you
this
very much.
meeting. Someone gives to him a notebook and say, hey, draw things about your experience, and you begin to draw something, and at the last was something like this, because you at last there are two, number one and number two, and I know that you're working in number three, but now there are only two of this in the market. And sometimes it's a normal sorry, sometimes it's a normal page, but for example, or sometimes it's like this normal page. Sometimes it's an illustration, full a splash page. Sometimes it's a comic strip, and sometimes it's something like this.
Yeah.
And the uh, I read the when you try to explain why you do this, but now because now you have I think one boy and one girl,
Mm-hmm.
and you are not a rookie father. You are more experienced.
But
You
you're
have
always a rookie father, aren't you?
yes, but you now you have enough background to. If
Yeah.
someone asks, if you meet with someone that his wife's pregnant and he have no idea what to do, now you and me have the capacity. You both are capable to say something. Before that, you have many ideas in your mind, but
Mm.
only these ideas. It's not a real. It's not the real world. It's your the image, the wonderful image you have in your mind. If you think about be a father, but when you see and you have your boy in your hand, you forget everything. But now, after all this year, because the first issue was published in 2019, I think 1 month before I read this, because I think this the Barcelona Comic Festival was in April 2019. Was when I meet with you and you give me the first number. Now, after all this year, what do you think about your job? Do you? I suppose you are proud of your job because it's really really nice.
You mean my job? You mean my work?
Yes, in that sense, because
Yeah.
now you have enough
Yeah.
enough periods of time to see with different eyes. Because when you are in the middle of the process and when after it's totally different. You are focused all your energy. You are finished. You finish. You need other things to do, not only with your kids, with your job, with the other job, the serious job, not to draw comic books. And normally you don't have time to see with the right eyes. Now you have time. You have two kids, two issues, two numbers. And what do you think about your job?
Well, I'm actually very happy and very proud. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here.
You're
It's a
welcome.
pleasure. So yeah, about that, I'm very proud because my main masterpiece, I would say, is my kids. So
Hmm.
that's the work, if you can call it that way, that I feel prouder of. But then when I look at the actual the books, I I really feel happy because they're very personal.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned, it's something that as you said, something that I started doing as a diary. It's not something that I ever meant to publish. And actually, I have the original
Hmm.
here. This is
Yes,
the
you send me here.
yeah,
For the
and as
people,
you can
he
see,
sent me some picture of some
yeah,
image of the originally, and
I
are
try
really
to keep
really nice.
the same freshness in the actual books, but obviously, I could I was able to do things like drawing
Yes,
on a tissue or a
wherever
napkin. Actually,
when
yeah,
you
this was a napkin in the restaurant of the hospital where we were, where my kid was born. So yeah, it was a very personal thing that I put a lot of love into, and the fact that I'm now able to share that with everyone, in a way that I feel happy with and comfortable with, because I think it really keeps the essence of what that original notebook was. Um, so yeah, as I said, I feel really really happy and proud of it, and I'm happy that everyone can.
no, and I remember because when I read your the first number was 2 months and a half before my first boy born, and for me was in some way the one guide to know what to do, because I read in nothing, I think in less than an hour, because I returned to the to Barcelona Comic Festival, sit down and begin to read and finish. I think I read 2 times because I went to read again something, and even I thought I even want to memorize some things inside the issue when I try to imagine me in the same situation like you. The reason I choose I talk with you and invite to this event, because I explained to our guests that uh, the idea is to show, to present uh, the comic book artists that do things in Spain. Actually, I uh, focus in show, for example, the work of Alfonso Spirit, like someone that understand that the future, how will look the future, because Alfonso was one of the first comic book artists, I think one of the first illustrator that began to work in the video game area in the 80s, when the video game was so new that anyone know what happened with this format, this support. And he began to work, do exactly the same thing like you do. That you do actually do the design and storyboard for movies, for in that case from fantasy movies in the 80s in Spain, when there are only a few examples in the 80s and in
Yeah.
the 90s. Alfonso, I think he had some time machine or something like that, because he did a lot of things that now is quite common. I think that the wonderful thing with Alfonso is he understands that uh, in the near future, every uh, things, every discipline have relation between them. He understand that it's not only comic book, it's not only movies, it's not only TV, it's not only toys. He really like toys. It's not only video games. At last, everything have relation, and for that reason, I choose him, because I think it's the one of the best example to show outside Spain. But the reason I talk with you is this idea began work to walk in after the Barcelona Comic Festival in 2019, but last year everything was postponed and cancelled
Yeah.
and whatever. And this year, when I saw again with the Finnish Comic Society, the only request from the producer of the event was, uh, do whatever you want, but it's okay for you. Try to talk with people that do comic book about the real life, the problems inside the society, or comic that show what happened in that case in the Spanish society. And before I do this virtual meeting, I checked some statistic about how many men take the paternity leave actually in Spain. And when I begin to check 3, 4 years ago, only between 12 to 15% of the males in Spain take the maternity leave. If you compare, in my case, I live and I have my kids here in Finland. Here, the paternity leave is like the maternity leave, something normal. There are people have the opportunity, there are people not, but it's quite common. But in Spain, no. Fortunately, in the last 2, 3 years, the situation changed, and now there are much more men that decide to take the paternity leave, because it's the best way to know your kids, and especially in countries like Spain, where the schedule are so crazy, because it's not a topic. When the people in Finland return to their homes, in Spain return to their jobs. That is the thing, because in Finland, anyone stop during 3 hours to lunch. You eat normally near to your company or inside in the same building, because in normally every company have 1, 2 place where it's possible to eat. you have 30 minutes and you return to our job, and normally before between 4 to 5:30 everyone return. In Spain, no. In Spain, many companies close at 11, at 1, open at 4:30, and you left your company, your shop, wherever,
Mm.
7:30, 8, 8:30. And the paternity leave is the best way in a country like our country to stay during 2 months. I think it's 2 months, 2 months and a half, to stay with your kids without this crazy schedule. But nevertheless, if you compare with other countries, the paternity leave is not something that actually the mentality changed, but it's not something is possible to find in the Spanish culture, like for example in the Nordic countries, in Germany, I think in United Kingdom, because I I told to the people that see Jaime live part the time in Spain, part the time in United Kingdom. Outside the Spain, the paternity leave is normal. Is you choose to take the paternity leave. In Spain, I think that many of the new generation, I think they choose to take, because many of the people of the new generation normally take the Erasmus exchange students, live in another country, and when they return, they take something from the new. And now there are many women that work outside homes, and sometimes and the other thing is the maternity leave in Spain is only 4 months, and the paternity leave is 2 months and a half. Here in Finland, the maternity leave normally is 1 year.
Mm.
My
That's
my
a difference.
It's a big
But
difference. It's a huge difference.
when I took the paternity leave, it was only 2 weeks.
Yes.
That was it.
No, no. The thing is, in the last 2 years, the situation changed between 2 weeks and 2 months, 2 months and a half, something like that. And I think this is really nice, because it's you put the 4 months and 2 months and a half and something, a lot is almost 7 months. It's not like here, because with my first son, my wife stayed 1 year and I stayed 2 months and a half, and in some way our kids stay with us during 14 months. And after that he began the school, and now he began his second year in the kindergarten, or Paivakote is the Finnish name of kindergarten. But in Spain, the people have not this opportunity.
Mm.
But I'm very proud of my country, that not only the actual government try to change the situation, because the government only write laws, or write things to do, but the people understand that this is necessary from the society. But nevertheless, I repeat, not everyone understand the life, like for example you and me, and not everyone understand that it's necessary to stay time with your kids, enjoy, because the two numbers is the same. I feel you learn much more than your kids.
Always, always. I think the parenthood is a journey where you learn so much. That's something I didn't imagine before, before being a parent. Because
I know the feeling.
yeah, because it's well, it's something scary. When you learn that you're going to be a parent, that you're going to be a father, and it's very scary because you suddenly realize how little you know about everything, and now you're going to be their role model, and not only because at first you're scared about having a baby. That's what everyone thinks when someone doesn't have a is not a parent, and they think of parenthood. First thing that comes to their minds, at least for me, it was that way, is baby. It's like, okay, having a child is having a baby, but that baby is only a baby for a few months. After that, they grow up, and they keep growing up for their whole life, and that's why I said
I'm
before,
very fast.
yeah, very fast, and that's why I mentioned before that when you said I'm not a rookie father anymore, I think that's a wrong idea. I think that we're always rookie.
Yeah,
just
my point is you are
constantly.
always a rookie father, but
Exactly.
you begin to have background, and
Yeah, exactly. You have
you
a
begin to
background.
have
You know.
something to remember. In the beginning, you don't have any background.
Yeah.
You try to learn s- at the same time like your baby. This is something. There are one comics book artist here in Finland. It's a woman, Anne Muhonen, that do something so similar. He draw the year before he she has her own baby and the year after, and
Mhm.
it's so similar. The situation in some way is different because she tried to explain to you what she feel. You do exactly the same because your wife has in some way the story is so nice because you see your point of view, her point of view, and when the baby's outside, the baby
Yes.
point of view.
Yes.
But
Although it's always from the point of view of the father, rather
no,
than.
no, that is the good
But
thing.
yeah, I try to reflect everything, even the struggle that the mother goes through during the pregnancy, and also, I mean, it's not easy for both of us. It's not easy for the children either.
You told with when you begin to do this, when you begin to draw in every piece of paper on in the wherever in over the table and in the bathroom or wherever you have the opportunity.
Literally.
You talk with your wife about this. Your wife say something. Your wife say draw something because
Yeah,
I think this is because
yeah,
something I don't know and I think it's good to.
yeah. Of course. While I mean, it's mostly because it was a way of relaxing for me, so to say. Um, it was something that I would do anyway. Sometimes I would just take a paper and draw all the notebooks. If it didn't have the sketchbook, I would draw in a paper or napkin or whatever.
Whatever.
But it obviously it came to a point. At the beginning, it was only me drawing. Then it came to a point where um, everyone was kind of giving input, like, hey, this happens, you should draw this, see how, and I didn't want to miss anything because I wanted to, because initially this sketchbook was meant to be a gift for my son when he was, and later on my daughter as well, when they're grown ups. So I wanted it to reflect every stage of their childhood. Um, and so whenever my wife said something like, told me something that had happened, or whenever, uh, you know, even if I wasn't there, I would try to reflect that. So that's why there are some stories that are, especially in the first book. The second
Mm.
book is different. The third book is mainly about me and the kids, but the first book is about parenthood and motherhood, and it has a lot of moments where I'm not around. Obviously, it, you know, their mom told me what was happening, and then I
Yes, and
reflected. So yeah, it was kind of a joint adventure.
no, and the good thing with the in that case the two numbers is you see how the kids and the parent grow at the same time in a different way because it's different because from the kids is everything is new. From you in that case is everything is new, but you have another life. Um, I think that in my personal experience, I learned to understand that what is real, what is important in life. I suppose because I know you not only through this channel, I have the opportunity to talk with you. I remember one time in Barcelona, I sit down with you with Enrique Vicente Vegas. He are drawing, you are drawing, and we talk about in that case because Enrique have two kids, one boy and one girl, and you have the your first kid, and I am in the near to be a father, and is now I understand that what is really important in your life. Both in our case, I know because I met with Enrique almost 20 years ago, and I met with you from the last 4 years. And for me, our job is so important. We really like and love our jobs. Sometimes spend too much time do things, even if you are there are something is, I think for a father is difficult sometimes, but when you invite your kid to a movie where you work and your kids say, it's nice, but it's a little bit boring, and you look and say, well, this happened.
Yeah,
But
that happened. Yeah, that
no, no,
happened.
but I think when you have kids and you have a good relation with your kids, you understand what is important. And sometimes it's more important stay in the floor, play with a car, with a small car until do whatever, because at last you remember this moment.
Mm.
You remember many things with your job, but at last you remember when, or there are a few, no, there are many things because every page is wonderful, but the first time your kids say daddy,
Mm.
you always remember that situation because it's when you understand that he know you are the father.
Mm.
Mommy is more easy because mommy is mommy.
Yeah.
But and this is something in the first number is quite clear. But when the kid look at you, in that case, you have a kid like me. When the kid look at you and say that is when you say, "Wow,
You
I am
meant, you literally
exactly, exactly. You are a daddy," and it's when you really understand what is your position actually in this world. You are the daddy of a small baby, and
yeah.
I think this is really nice because uh, you read sometimes you read this type of things, especially in not in comic books, in books, and sounds so impersonal, it's so mechanic. But in these two numbers, you really understand that you grow in this at the same time, yeah, that your kids. You learn things exactly. You
Yeah.
try to understand, and you try to understand who are you because it's just say you don't have background. You believe you know a few things, and when you have your kids in your hand, you understand you don't have any idea what to do.
And I love that you say that because in a way it's not something that I was conscious or I was doing consciously because this the way I was doing it is it was just you know as a diary. Obviously, at some point, I started to be a little bit too delayed in what I was doing, and then it wasn't a diary anymore. But still, I it was something personal, and it's not something that I did on purpose. But I like that you mentioned that you can see how not only the kids grow, but I grow and we grow as the parents grow. It's because it's something that came naturally because I was just drawing what I felt and what I lived and what I saw and what my kids did in every moment, and then you can see the evolution not only for the kids because you literally see them grow in the pages,
Yes.
but you see us get get old and more expert. Like literally, you can see how my hair is going wider and wider in
Yes.
the pages. So,
Yes.
so by the end of the second book, I already have a little bit of gray hair in
Yes. Yes. Yes.
there.
Yes. True.
And in the third book, I literally have this. So you the characters are not like usual comic books where
No.
the
No.
characters that are always the same. They're always young or they're always the same um, design. Characters.
In,
No, we grow because this is real. You know.
in some ways, a mix between comic storyboard and design from a movie. This something like, for example, make the Hildebrands or Ralph McQuarrie from Star Wars that they try to show what happened in the screen 2 3 years after he drew this. That is, I think the wonderful thing of your job is the real.
Mm.
I admit that I choose this topic because I am in the same situation. I have kids because I live in Finland because it's quite easy, normal, and the society when you have kids here and you out with your kids, everyone look at you and even smile because and it's quite nice when you go now, no, but before the pandemic, the 6 months until Bruno was 6 months, I came to the one of the main libraries in Helsinki. The library have a huge space from babies, a big carpet with toys and wherever. And sometimes there are only fathers. Sometimes we meet with, I don't know, 15, 20 fathers with kids. And it's a really, and I remember the peoples in the library when the people walking around look at us and smile because it's a wonderful image only daddies with small babies and it's here is here to be father to be parents is quite nice and quite easy and everyone help and all the society understand that this is something important from the society and from the parents in particular but your job is exactly the same in your comic there are space from everything there are space from serious topic in some way when you in the beginning when someone say you are I am pregnant and you try to there are some page in the first about the difference between well it's something from Spain because the night of the Magic King or whatever you want to ask in English. La Noche de Reyes is only from Spain. Here is Santa Claus. But the difference between when you're a small kid and the 5th of January, you wait until these Magic Kings arrive at your home with the gift. And in your case, the same moment when your wife is pregnant and you are waiting until your wife say, "Hey, this is the moment." There are other things that, for example, the bricomania. I don't have any problem with the to do the codes, and I don't have. The thing is, I have the code, but I don't have any manual to do. But I like to do this kind of thing. That is the difference. And for example, in that case, this is quite nice because you see your wife and the problem and you try to help and it's so nice and it's trust me it's so cute because these things happen now
That
I have the
actually happened.
exactly
I
no
mean, as you see there, it
yesterday my
happened.
wife tried to up and I need to help because it's 8 months pregnant something like in here and I need to help because for her it's difficult and normally you don't see this even even in movies
Mm.
that's the thing that
Yeah,
is the good part with an DD plus two because it's
yeah, because very often you see the well now it's changing a little bit, but traditionally you only see the bright part, and although these books are humor basically, and you can it's there's nothing sad or dramatic here, but 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 it's because I'm using humor to tell things that aren't really that easy. So some things we have difficult moments as parents, and
yes
those difficult moments are there. It's just they are told with a little bit of humor, to make the pill sweeter, to make it
yes
softer.
but
But
the
but the
it's
moments,
true
the sleepless nights,
Hmm.
or the arguments, because there are fights, arguments, and tense moments sometimes, and those are there. You
Hmm.
when you can't sleep because you're. In my case, my daughter, she was screaming like crazy. That wasn't easy. That wasn't easy,
No
but it's all there with humor because, um, with some perspective, it's everything. There's humor to everything. You know,
Hmm.
there's everything can be nice and cute if you.
And in some way, I don't know in your case, but in my case was something we choose. Anyone spend like in the 19th century when your family is over to you, say you need to have kids because you need to keep your surname and the name of the family and da 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 da. No, I suppose you and me have kids because we want to have, and we don't have enough background. Anyone have enough background? In that moment, they don't have background, but they have nannies. That's the idea. You have kids because that's the thing in the 19th century, especially in the rich families.
Yeah.
People have kids because they don't keep kids. They have kids, and someone spend all day and the nights and all the problems. They only show the kids in the special moment and put these wonderful 4 or 5 names and 3 or 4 surnames, and everyone is happy. No, I think in our case it's different. We choose to be parents,
Mhm.
and you know that, especially I think in the second time, you know that you have good, regular, bad, and horrible night and horrible days, but one day you wake up and your kid is 6 months old and everything is behind you,
Mhm.
because you don't. The thing is, you don't have enough time to think, because if you
Well,
want to do,
everything's behind you and everything's ahead of you, really, because that's when you get dizzy. You know, when you think of, man, like now I'm thinking of about the, you know, they're going to become teenagers soon, and, and
one day you wake up, one day
that's
you
really
wake up
scary,
and your kid
really,
is
really scary.
40 years old and say, "What happened?"
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, well, how am I gonna face that? Like, I don't know. I'm not prepared. No, no one is. And so it's that feeling, that being unprepared, that that's with you. That's stuck with you forever from the
Hmm.
very beginning. Like you don't feel prepared. So, you know, a lot of people, you know, that when they ask you when are you gonna have kids and all that, you know, some people answer, yeah, whenever I feel prepared. I don't think that ever happens. I might be wrong. Maybe it happens, but certainly it didn't happen to me. Like, there's no moment in your life that you are like, I'm prepared. The only thing you're prepared to is, I'm prepared to face whatever comes, which I'm not prepared to. Does it make sense?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the same. I have the same feeling. I try to teach my boy in the best way possible. I try to spend all the time, all the free time I have, even the time I don't have. And I hope to have enough time to stay with him in every important moment. But I don't know what happened tomorrow. That's the thing. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened with me, even with my age. But I think the best way to do is stay with him, try to help in any way possible. This is something when you read I think this is something you feel when you read your job. You try to stay near to your boys, to your kids, try to teach, try to learn that, and it's important that the kids understand you are near to him, and if
yeah,
they need
you're
help.
doing your best, the best way possible, and you hope for the best.
Exactly.
So all you can.
What happened after? Who knows? But I don't know. Maybe because I am much more order than you, and I decide to have kids much more order, and maybe I understand that what is important and what is not. I don't try to be the best father in the world. I think you do not try to. You only try to do the best in the best way. You try to do the best. You try to show your best face with your kids, but at last you know that you you do good things and bad things. You make
Many mistakes,
mistake and
tons of mistakes.
exactly. But I think you try to learn like me, and this is something when you, especially in the second book, now because I have two kids, and you try to teach your big boy that mommy have something inside. This is so new because I try to do exactly the same with my boy. Teach that mommy have something inside, and it's a small baby, and when the baby's outside, he know, actually my boy know that when the baby is outside, he will be the person in charge to choose the nappies and take the dummy and do a lot of things and carry with the milk from the new baby, because I think it's quite important that he understand that he's now there anyone there someone new in at home, but he's so important that before, and it's good from him to understand we, my wife and I, understand that he's important, his point of view is important, and he want to help. Is not because for example, this is something I don't really like to explain, that there are many adult person that think, no, is this is a small baby or small kid. He have no idea what to do. Excuse me. No, this is stupid because it's two eyes, two ears, two hands, two feet, and if he want to help, please use, because uh,
You know,
two,
something that's funny is that sometimes we tend to underestimate uh, toddlers,
yes,
and I realized that, and you can sort of see that in the second book actually.
this, yes,
My daughter started. Um, she could talk very soon. She learned to speak very soon, and she talked a lot. Like she would shout. She was like blah 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 blah, and she was not even 2 years old. And that's when I realized, well, when I compared with my son, who started speaking maybe almost 3 years old, not so much, but almost. And before that, you tend to think that he doesn't understand anything, that he doesn't understand what's going on because he doesn't speak. So you assume that he doesn't understand, and sometimes you say things in front of them, and when I saw my daughter with less than with 1.5 years or less, a little bit more than 1 year, I was like, she understands everything. She's
everything.
so that means that my son understood everything as well. He just didn't say. So that's when you suddenly learn that you were I was underestimating him, and most people underestimate toddlers because they think that they can't understand or do things that they actually can.
He understand everything.
Yeah.
Trust me, with my boy, the thing is, in my particular case, my wife is a teacher and she's specialized in toddler. And before my son is born, I told a lot about this because she know what happened with small kid. When you work with kid between 10 months to 2.5 years, you understand how this small creature think. And this is something in the beginning I assume that even my son began to speak early because he began the school with 14 months, and he really enjoy and he really want to communicate. But before that, when you stay with a person that spent the last almost 14 years with toddlers, that you never underestimate a small creature, because you begin, no, he don't speak, but they understand everything even much better than you, because they don't have these crazy ideas inside like us.
Mm,
He
my
for them it's black and white.
Yeah. my son remembers things that I said when he barely could speak. So he not only understands, he remembers.
No,
So
no, no.
it is dangerous because sometimes you say something like you don't give it any importance to what you just said. You say something, and years after that, they still remember, and they still and they still um, you know whatever it is you said, it still has an impact on them,
Yes,
and that's when you learn that you have to be very careful,
yes, yes.
and how important it is your your role as a father, and because you're their role model, so they're going to be listening to everything, and they're going to be wide open, the eyes wide open to looking at
Your
everything.
job is quite important to teach that. What is your you are part of a play. If you want, or you are part of screenplay. But I prefer the idea of play because the theater is in front of you, a real person without any screen, any camera between. No, you are in front of the people, and you need to understand what is your role in that play. And when you read the first number is when you begin to, and I read 2 months before my son was in this world, is when you learn that you have one specific role and you need to understand and you need to be coherent with this role, because it's not you, even if you don't want to do things in the worst way possible, you make mistake because you need to understand what is your role. And many people believe, no, I am the far, like 20, 18, 19, even in the 20th century, because I am the far, everything I do is good. No, sorry, no. This is the worst idea inside
Danger,
your
the
mind.
danger with that is that the kids, they believe that everything you do is right, even if it's not.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful with that because you're teaching them with your example, with your acts, So, and they're gonna take for granted that what you've done is right until they're old enough to think by themselves.
Hmm.
Um, but as toddlers and kids, when they're children, they do believe that.
And for that is the thing, you need to be careful. What do you do? What do you think? What do you say? What do you do? Because in front of you, you are the only referent.
Yeah,
When they
exactly.
began to do outside is different, but in your home, in
Oh,
the
then
life
it's
of my
perfect.
boys, you are the
Yeah, you're,
the
you're
main character with mommy,
yeah, exactly.
and everything mommy do, everything daddy do is like the most wonderful thing. And I try to sometimes is you need to stop and think something probably you don't do many times in your life. When you have a kid is when you, in my case, you begin to understand how important is to think sometimes, not only from
Mm.
uh, to make something and to talk with someone or to have a meeting with someone in another part of the world. You need to think because someone look at you and look move, every movement you do.
Sometimes I have conversations now they are a bit older, and I have conversations with them, trying to make them real. I don't want to, break their illusion, but obviously, I want them to be aware that I'm human and I have flaws and I'm not perfect. Because I don't want them to repeat my mistakes,
Hmm.
to make their own mistakes, but not repeat
Yes,
mine.
exactly. If they want copy something, for example, I in my case now, I think the only thing I want that my boy copy is the love I have for toys, for example. Yes, because for me the toys is something. For me the idea of toys is so important because it's the thing that I used to remember who I was. is something that for me is the best thing to not to believe that I am a different person that I really am. And the toys is all my memories have toys around in one way or other. And for example, I try to teach my boy that keep your toys in the best way possible. Sometimes the toys broken, like me, I broke toys when I was kid. But I have so many toys because I have the same toys from the last 50 years.
Mm.
I keep toys when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, and I
I wish I
keep
had
this.
those.
I actually have these toys in my home here in my homes actually, and I try to teach this because for me it's important, and I believe for him will be important too, because for me it's the best way to remember who I was.
Mm.
But I don't want to teach anything more, much more than have your own routine and do the things. And if you are toys, wherever, when you finish, put in the same place because I don't want to jump like a kangaroo to to try to find and things like that. But I don't want to do anything more because I don't believe that I am the best, not the best role model, male, the best role like a father. I believe is to say I want that he try to do the things in his way and he make his mistake, not my mistake. And it's something I learned because I talk a lot with my wife, but I learned when I read your job because it's something I maybe because I am a writer and I know how to write in the middle of the sentence. You draw something, and in my mind, sorry, sounds, but my mind is capable to write in the between the lines.
Mm.
And I feel that you try to do this. You try to be the best father, but you make mistake. You don't have all the answer, like me. And when I read the first numbers, I really begin to accept that what happened with me a few months after I read the first issue. And today I read the second, 1 month after my second kid say, hello, I am here. And the approach is different because my boy is 2 years old, 2 years and 1 month. And I know the situation is totally different. Now you know a few things, you know some way or other what happened, what need you do. My boy have his own routine. He go to the Paivakoti, and it's totally different than the first time. But this is something. It's when I accept the challenge to do this, the challenge to invite Spain in the Helsinki Comic Festival. I know that not every author have his job or her job in English because I know in Finnish it's quite difficult. And I really, really like that you have these books in English because in a country like this where the paternity leave is so common, even in a country like Finland with I think all the people that I have some uh, professional relation, all these people take the paternity leave. I don't meet with anyone don't take. Some I know a few that only have the capacity to take 1 month and a half, not the 2 months and a half, but everyone use this right.
Yeah, it's actually something that I have in mind that I have pending because my books, unfortunately, they're not in English yet, but I'm working on that. And I guess the reason why they're not in English yet is because well, first I haven't had the time to translate them because they're very personal and they they don't always translate very well, because there's a lot of puns and there's a lot of things related to our culture. They're not always translates, but I want to because I'm doing my best to think of how to translate that. Actually, I have some there's a Facebook and an Instagram site for these books, and sometimes I upload pages, often even new pages that aren't in the books because they're for the third one that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Something like that. And sometimes I upload something and I translate it right away. I put some subtitles, some translation, so everyone can enjoy it. And I have really good responses from
Mhm.
English speakers.
Yes.
So this, so these things are universal. Those are
No, no,
things
I think it's the
that
same in
I
every country.
relate to. So as I say, it's something that I really want to do. I just have to, come up with the right translations for certain things, like starting with the title, because the title
Yes,
is
yeah,
in Spanish
the
doesn't.
title is always the challenge normally, and it's true. There are every country has different background, but I learned with when I read the Anne Muhonen, the two issues that even is some things are from the Finnish guy, because she used, for example, the food that normally we eat here that is not the same in Spain or United Kingdom or in Germany, but at last the feeling are exactly the same. And I after all this talking, do you believe that, because when I read the first, I read the Anne Muhonen comic book, I think 10 years ago, yeah, 10 or 12 years ago, because Anne have her first kid, and now he have this kid and twins, and I think uh, he her older boys is around 10 or 11 or 12, something like that. I don't know exactly his age as a boy, but it's the same when I read this. If I have the enough budget, I order a big edition, because this book is good that every boy between 16 to no 15 to 17 years old need to read in the high school.
Oh, really? I
Yes,
appreciate that.
yes, because it's I don't want to I don't want to go to the place that many newspaper and TVs and magazine in Spain use, try to compare Finland with Spain. The system is totally different. The educational system is totally different. The society is different, and it's not fair, because I believe that when you try to compare something, you need to use the same base, and it's different way. The education, the system in Finland is more solid, not only because the government spend much more money, it's because inside the society they understand that the education is important. Without education, one society do not work properly. And this is something in the Spanish society do not understand. Before, now, and I don't know in the future. And you know, because you live in Spain and outside Spain, and you know that when you left your country and you go, the more near is Portugal or France, the situation is totally different. The libraries in France are one of the most amazing places. In Spain, the people don't go to the libraries.
Mhm.
In Finland, one of the things that was closed during the pandemic was the libraries, and for here was a big shock, because from the kids, the Saturday is the day when they come with their parents to pick up books. Probably every Saturday, even in winter with 14 degrees minus, the kid put the hallery and the boots and wherever, and go to the library with the parents to pick up books,
It's
because the
almost the same that happens in Spain, but Spain is still libraries is with bars and pubs. But it's the same. You can close a library, but you cannot close a bar.
Exactly. That's the thing. That is, for me, this I would expect if you have you one different approach to life, your life I have. For me, this is not important. For me, it's important that I live in a place where near to my home, near in the same city I live, there are 56 public libraries. For me, this is important for me, and I think this is important from my boy, and from the next, from the second, from the second round will be important. In that case, in Spain, this is not important. But I believe this is necessary that something change, and it's important that the boys and girls inside the high school understand what happened with your life, because have a kid is so easy. You don't need to think, you don't need to pay, you don't need to find a specific place in a specific country. To have a kid is so easy.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's too much.
I have there's one page, one drawing in my first book where I say it's so easy to make a kid and so difficult to make a person.
Exactly.
Um,
That's the thing. And
and yeah,
this is in I think that in some way I choose to take this meeting with you because it's I want to talk with someone. I know that this is from a country where when all these things I try to explain, people understand really well. I don't need to explain that how important are the libraries in Finland. In Finland, in every Nordic countries, even in France or in Germany, where because they understand that without culture, the classical and the popular culture are important. But in Spain, unfortunately, people, there are things are it's important that there are more bar and restaurant that in every place, in every corner, but it's not important that you find a library or you don't find a museum or you don't find a movie theater or a theater or wherever. I know this is actually impossible to change, but I believe that it's possible to change the mentality of the new generation. And job with you is a one maybe a small tool, but it's a easy tool to understand because even the more ignorant people, and there are unfortunately many people like that in our country for this type of topics, if they take your book, they find something that they really understand because it's so easy. You don't want you say you don't want to put any nice things. You don't want to use sense of humor to take the reality and put behind the carpet. No, you have problem with your wife because you choose one name and your wife chooses different name, for
yeah.
example.
You know
And
what?
this is real.
Speaking of that, something that I have a disclaimer here, but I found a lot of parents that bought my book and came to me like my book to sign it and all that, and they mentioned that their kids loved it, and it was it was the kid who came with the book for me to sign, and the parents were like, "See, he loved it or she loved it," and I was like, "Great, I love that you say that, but have you read it?" No, 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 it was for my kid. I was like, "No, I mean it is for parents, it is for
Yes.
adults." But the thing is, because I don't have anything against kids reading it,
No,
but
no, no.
it's not really for kids. It's not kids are not going to understand most of it. Um, the the older my kids grow in the books, the more it has content that is not for kids.
Hmm.
Because obviously, it shows. our flaws as parents. It shows our thoughts as parents, and it shows what's behind the curtain. And you don't want your kids to read that yet. You want them to read
Exactly.
that when time comes, but not yet. So giving that book to a kid is like giving a man. It's like showing the trick behind the curtain. It's like it's a big spoiler of what you're doing as a parent. So I is first book is funny for kids, totally mm, kids friendly.
But
Second
the second, no.
second book
The second is from
is
parents.
it depends on the age, but not for very young kids because it
It's
has.
from teenagers. I choose the
And I
I
promise you, the third book is not gonna be for kids.
it's from I choose the high school age because I think it's and in the high school is when you begin to have your first relations,
Yeah,
and you is when you begin to in some way to think about be a father or be a mother.
that's a good age because that's when they're kids are transitioning into adults, and now they can see how childhood is from a more adult perspective. So that's fine. It's just not for children.
No,
And even though children can read it, and I feel happy when I see a child reading, especially the first book, I feel a little bit when they read the second book, but it's fine because most of it, I mean, my kids have read it obviously, but I do not let my kids read what I have so far of the third book.
no, and I
Not
understand
let
for that reason. That
because
is the thing. I believe that, but this is another things in Spain. People don't understand. Comic book is a language. It's one
they assume as soon as they see it has drawings, they
yes,
assume it's for kids. And
yes.
I've seen it in the children's section of some bookshops. And personally, I've grabbed it and moved it to the adult section, and then spoke to the librarian, to the guy, because because it's not for kids, but they assume it's for kids because it has nice drawings. The drawings are appealing for kids, probably. Well, I was gonna say they're colorful. Only the cover is colorful,
Mm.
but it's kind of cartoony because that's the style I wanted to do it because I felt more comfortable with that style because it's
No, no. The style is
in story
it's easy to read. It's easy to
that,
understand, and it's easy to memorize. But this is the other part that, for example, here in a country like this, people understand that the comic book is there are comic books from kids, especially Agwanka. Agwanka is Pato Donald in Finnish. And there are many Agwanka comic books are not from boys and not from kids. But you understand Agwanka is the first step. It's the first door you open when you begin to read. But after that, there are many, many other choice. And here they understand that the comic book is a support to use to
mm,
tell stories in many ways. But it's like you work in the animation area. It's exactly the
exactly
same
the same.
problem. The
I,
people believe that because it's an animation movie, it's from kids. I'm
it is
sorry.
changing. It is changing, luckily. Uh,
Yes,
but in the Western culture, actually, because the Eastern culture, they have a uh, different approach, and even in Europe, France is different, Belgium is different. They
in
have a
France,
more
it's different in many ways,
yeah, they have
especially in
a
this kind
rich
of things.
culture in terms of comics and animation, and in terms of how adults consider.
Hmm.
But here, when I say here, I mean either in Spain or in the UK or in many other countries. It it's not like that. Like if they see drawings, it's automatically for kids.
Here, no.
It's
Here
basically
is there are comic book from kids, comic book from teenagers.
Yeah,
That is normally
comics is a medium, as
exactly,
animation is a technique. They're not a genre by themselves. You know, they
exactly,
need, there can be many genres inside those techniques.
exactly. And here the people understand that there are, you use this format, this tool, wherever you want to name it, but there are different approach, and you need to understand, and you need to teach your in that case your kids, because there are animation from kids, there are animation from teenager, there are animation from adult, and they are coming from kids, from teenager, and from adults.
Yeah.
And for example, this is something when my boy, not now, but in a few years, I want to teach this and say this is from you now, because this house is full of books and full of comics. You see behind me, for example, of this comic, and this comic is from me, not from him. I suppose he began to read like any, in that case, any Finnish boy, at one kind Finnish, because it's everyone. Even I remember when I told with the director of the Finnish Film Foundation library, the Filmoteca in Spanish, and exactly the same. And this person told me that the Finnish in Aguanca is really good. If I want to teach my boy Finnish, Aguanca is one of the best option, and it's the in that moment was the director of one, the one library specifically create to the movies, the movie industry, and the movie history. But if you told, I told with many people, and all the people say the same. One guy is the first step, and it's quite nice from kids. But after that, you need to teach your kids. And for that reason, I put this example. I believe that it's good that in the Spanish educational system begin to use things like La Vida Padre 1 and 2, because it's good that the kids, in that case the teenager, begin to understand how they work, and not everything is take the computer, the phone, or the tablet. Sometimes it's good to take this. And the other part is when you know the story behind your job. I think from in my case, I write. I don't enough got to draw, but I know how to write. And it's a good idea to take your own notebook and begin to or write or draw or do things,
Certainly.
because it's and I am very grateful that Dolmen Editorial is the editorial that published these two comic book or graphic novel, or because put novela gráfica in Spanish, graphic novel in English, o sea, Yakuba in Finnish. It's good that they choose to do in the same way like you originally did when you make your
Yeah.
uh, dire far is dire
I
parents.
say, I would, I want to do a big shout out here and thank Dolmen for that, because they gave me all the creative freedom. Like literally, I I I was, I was allowed to do everything, including to choose the design for the cover. And I'm grateful also. Luckily, my my partner, my girlfriend now, she's a graphic designer, and she was the one doing the graphic design for the book. She's the one in charge of this amazing,
Mhm,
this amazing design and cover,
mhm.
and the logo and everything. And we basically did it here at home and handed it handed it to them, and they respected everything we did, um, and they found the right printer to do it, so that we could have even the rubber band and
Yes,
everything.
exactly. And the
Yeah.
thing,
So because it was so important to me that that the book was as similar as possible as the original. You know,
it's like had
the
I
original.
think that
the rubber band. It has.
Exactly, had this exactly the same spirit.
I wanted the reader to have the actual thing, you know,
Yes, that's the
and
thing.
and I couldn't just give the drawings and send them away and expect someone else to come back with a design that's the graphic design of this book is aligned with the creation of the book. So I'm so grateful that I could have my girlfriend as the graphic designer doing this
Mm,
at the same time
mm.
together, because that allowed us to have the result that we
No,
have.
no, and because I know your editor because during 12 years was my editor too, and I know that your editor, the actual editor, my former editor, he has twins, and I think he understand the same. He have the same feeling than you and me, and I think for him was easy to understand that it's important to keep the idea, not only the draw, all the package in the same way. And when I remember when I take in my hand and say, wow, this is really really nice, because I the thing is when I arrived to the Barcelona Comic Festival in 2019, I go into and looking for the stamp from Dolmen, because even in that moment, my last job for Dolmen was in 2017. But I always go to the Dolmen stand to say hey. And the first image for me was a big banner with this cover. The
Yeah,
banner with this,
I
because it's
remember
in
now.
the
Yes.
front of, you go to see the Dolmen editorial stand and you see this. And I say, wow. And I asked to the I know the thing is I know everyone in Dolmen, and I asked one guy and say, do you have one? And say, take this, because anyone know that in that moment why my wife is pregnant, because many of the Dolmen staff know my wife, but anyone know the editor and the director, the editorial director, and anyone know. But the first things I did in the Barcelona Comic Festival in 2019 was take your first number and open and begin to read, because and say, well, this is me in a few. And I think 1 hour after, I meet with your editor and say, and for him, well, your wife is pregnant, and he was happy all the comic festival. He asked me about my wife because he know my wife very well too. He asked me about my wife, I don't know, 20 times in these 3 days. And when you draw something in one issue and in one number and sign and give to me was amazing. I remember to call my wife and say, I have something. I take a picture to the phone and send. And I remember when my wife reply, I say, I want to read, I want to read. And no, no, don't worry, it's for me. The author signed to me. And when I arrived in Finland, it's the first time I did after say hello with take and begin to read, because she asked me about your job during the all days, every day, told me, because I read and the next day I send a message and say, hey, this is so fun, da, 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 da. I say, I want to read, I want to read. I say, che, it's only from daddies. It's not true because it's from daddies and from mummies, but during a few days, it's only from daddy. But when I arrive in Finland, I give to her and she reads in this, I think more fast than me. She smiled and I remember when she saw when your wife was pregnant or your partner was pregnant and she's in the same state like her and say, this is me in the pay and say, and I said to her, and this is me in the same situation. And was really, really nice. And for that reason, I have enough time to think about, not only in this project before this project was born, and I think that this is thing like that is necessary to put inside the Spanish educational system, because in the Finnish system it's possible to find things like that, because the comic book is other tool, There are many, you have many tools to use to teach things inside the school, and comic book is one too, because they understand that it's something you find in the real world. And when you don't use these things, it's so sad, because I remember before I moved to Finland, in one public library in my hometown in Gran Canaria, they do something really nice. They do something, was the restaurant of the library. And the small kid arrive to the library, sit down in the tables, and the people in the library give to her some menu with the name of different books from the part from kids. And one day, one small kid say, after a few minutes, the people in the library, the people in charge, go to every table and say, "What do you want to read?" And I remember, because this day I stay in the library. Specifically, someone invite me because I want to see how these things work. And I remember one boy is maybe 8 or 9 years old. Everyone asked from one book, and this boy say, "I don't want anything." And one guy say, "Why?" "Because I don't want to read this. I want to read Batman."
Hmm.
Anyone put in the menu, and this library have a good, this library, I don't know now, but in 2001 or two, the library had 2 or 3 shelves full of comics. No one small, no, they have a lot of comics, classical comics from Spain. They have Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, uh, classical Spanish comics, Mortadelo, Filemon, Zipizape, a lot of things. And these kids say, "You don't have any comic in the menu." And when he say this, other kids say, "It's true." And many kids change. "I don't want to read this. I want to read Superman. I want to read Spider-Man." And I remember, because the people in that place look at me, because I am the director of the library, asked me if I do something to organize the comic book section, and look at me, and I don't say anything. And when the kids return and say, uh, what do you do?" "Hey, it's your library. You have comic here. You have 3 shelves with full of comic. You need to understand that the comic are outside in the real world, and there are parents that read comics." Because I begin to read comics because my father really loved aesthetics, for example. And I always remember to see comic book in my home. And one day, when I begin to read, I begin to read comic. I begin to read aesthetics, Lucky Luke, um, and after that was Spider-Man, Superman, da 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 da. But if your parents read comics, you see comics in your home. And if you go to some place with a lot of, and normally if there are comics, there are comics and there are books together. There are not only comic books. There are comics and books. In my home, there are books and comics. And this boy, and I remember, because a small kid with glasses like me, normally I use glasses, and this boy was so frustrated because they move the menu and they don't find anything. And the thing is, probably he saw the Batman comics in the shelf when he arrived in the library, and they want to read this comic because there are big volume of Batman, the classical comics and something like that. And when they don't find in the menu, he was so frustrated, and I think in some way was angry. And I remember how he looked at the librarian and say, "Hey, I want to read Batman. I don't want to read any of these books. These books are boring. Batman is fun." And I tried not to smile. I tried to continue in the same attitude. But I think, hey, you have comics. When I don't know who write this menu, but this person he didn't know anything, not about comics. He didn't know anything about the real life. After that, they changed the menu and put a lot of comics. Even comics are not from kids. They don't put, for example, manga, because the manga is not from them. But they put, he go to the library, the shelf, and try to put comics. But before that, in the menus, there are, I think, 3, 4 different menus in this activity from the libraries, and in any of these menus, there are any comic book.
Mm. I, that reminds me of a anecdote that actually, last year I went to my kids' school to to teach. I wanted to teach their class how to. Basically, it was one of these uh, bring your parent and job. Talk about your job.
Yes,
How that.
exactly.
So
I know.
I was going to teach them about comics, and how to make comics, in a fun way for kids.
Hmm.
I went to the class and I asked, what is a comic, and I asked if they read comics. But I asked what is a comic, and some of them, but many of them, said a comics is something for kids that children read. And then I asked, "Do you read comics?" And they were like, "No, that's for children." I was like, first, there are children, but then I was like, "Who taught you that?" Because it's not true. And then in a nice way, obviously, but I taught them about comics, what comics are, what the potential of comics is, and they were, I think they were very, motivated by that. But it was a bit sad to me to find out that so early, so young, they're already learning that from their parents or from the society or from whatever. But they're learning that because I actually went to the class of both of my kids, and there's 1 year, one course apart. And in the class of my daughter, they were very receptive about comics. They were very they all I asked how many of you can draw, and all of them raised their hands like all of
Hmm.
us can draw. I can draw, I can draw, I can do this, I can do that. And then I said to them, um, I want you to draw a comic, whatever. And then everyone came with a nice idea and drawings, sometimes crazy, sometimes the drawings were children drawings, but
Yeah,
not nothing great, but all of them had something, and they had the creativity of a kid. And
exactly.
just 1 year apart, I went to my son's class. I did the same thing, same question. I got those answers I mentioned before, and then I did the same exercise of who can draw. Uh, no one, just two of them raised their hands. I was like, well, certainly everyone can draw, right? No, I can't draw. I can draw. No, only that guy can draw. I can't draw. I can't draw. Like they were already predetermined not to
Yes.
draw. And only a couple of them came up with fresh ideas. Everyone else were just stuck in the fact that they cannot draw,
Hmm.
and they barely didn't do anything. And I was sad to see that because it's not something that they bring themselves, and it's
Yes,
not
no, it's something that someone teach in the,
exactly something that they've learned in that particular year.
yes.
And it's sad. It's sad. I think it's something that has to change.
Mm.
The education has to change to not kill the creativity in the kids.
Yes.
Because the way the education system works, it kills the creativity,
Mm. It's
basically.
true. This is something I learned when I was younger, and I always try to. I do the things I did in my life from the last almost 35 years, because in that way, where I was a strange, because here in Finland you have the opportunity to do to learn in a company when you are 15 years old, because the system say you want to study something, you want to go to university or some place, before that go to some company and understand how the things work in the real in the society, and you have this opportunity between 15 to 17 years old. I don't have this opportunity, but I begin to work early from Spain, especially when I begin to work was in the 80s. Now I know the situation changed in some way, but in the 80s, if you are 18, 19, 20 years old, you have a small amount of possibilities, and I have the opportunity to begin to work in something real. My first professional job was attend a film festival with a real accreditation, and I have the same obligation that a normal journalist, even I am not a journalist, but I have the same routine and I have the same material. In some way, I have the same consideration that someone spent the last 30 years writing about movies. So I have exactly the same possibilities in when I attend my first film festival. But all the things I did in all these Chinese, I think my behind all this all my crazy ideas behind my approach is try to show to the art people that is if you have one idea, even if it's the more crazy idea, it's possible to do. If you have one dream, I remember uh, one of the things I did in the cultural foundation that I am part of this cultural foundation in Spain. Even I am the director of international relations because I live outside Spain. I live here in Finland, but the foundation is in Spain. And in the 4th of May, we organize an crazy Star Wars day with 20 guys. The meeting was almost three hours in a row, and I meet with some friend from my university school because he actually have the same Millennium Falcon that he did from one exhibition in 1993 in our university school. And for me it was great because I have even this Millennium this model kit is in one book in Spain because one guy that put in three different books what everything about the Star Wars made in Spain, and he put in the second volume this exhibition in 1993 in Madrid in one university school. And when I talked with him during this day, he remembered that the original idea from this exhibition was 3 years after. We spent 3 years talking with people, looking things, because in the 90s was so difficult to find Star Wars toys and everything related with Star Wars toys because everything is focused in United Kingdom and especially in United States. But if you want to order something, it's so expensive, so difficult. You don't have internet. You need to use phone, fax in that moment, or the normal post, and you need to pay a lot of money. The difference between the dollar and the Spanish currency is brutal, some ways so expensive. And we spent 3 years until we have the opportunity to did that exhibition. And that was a huge exhibition. We only even have the possibility to make one physical catalog in black and white, but we have the opportunity, cost a lot of money because in that moment to make this type of thing was so expensive. But we spent 3 years until we have the choice. And it's not only because I want one of the guy behind it, because both of us spent 3 years working until he made this Millennium Falcon and helped to other people make another model kits and helped to set up the exhibition and many other things. And I believe that the reason I spend actually working in a cultural foundation and I spent the last 2 years try to put all the pieces in the same place to create this event in Finland to I told before in our meeting to do a big business card to present, for example, your job here in Finland is because I think it's necessary not forget your creativity and the thing you really like. Because without this, it's like the example I put with the toys. I like toys not only because I like small things like action figure, cars, something like that, because for me it's the best way to remember that I am in some way the same small kid that liked toys when I was the same age that my kid, that my boy. But it's exactly the same. When you forget that thing, I think you lose something in your life. And one day you wake up and maybe you have a wonderful home, a wonderful car, a wonderful job, but you forget something in the middle. And you don't have the opportunity to find because you lose and you don't have the opportunity to find in any way. Is when, sorry for the example, is when Peter Pan lose his shadow. It's exactly the same. I don't want to say that I believe in, really, I believe in Peter Pan. It's one of my favorite characters. But for example, one of my favorite movies, Chiti Chiti Bam Bam. I believe in the character of Karataku Spot, this guy that take a some car even destroy and he create a car that is possible to fly. And I really believe that because one was my favorite movie when I was 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know how my parents spend so much money with me in the movie theater, see the same movie. I don't know how many times, but I really want to wait until the moment I have the opportunity to see Chichi Bamban with my boy. And I hope he really like, because I remember when I showed to two, two, one brother and one sister, she was I think 9 years old and he was 12 years old. Both of us, they don't know Chitibamban, and when they saw the movie a few years ago, was wow because they really really enjoy the idea. And I think for that reason, it's true. It's so sad that a small kid believe that comics are only from a small kids, and the difference between us is 1 year, 1 year and a half, even 2 years. And that is the reason I choose your job, because your job is the wonderful. It's wonderful to remember. To do not forget. It's something I really don't like to the Spanish society. People don't want to remember. They don't want to remember when they are kids. They don't want to remember when they are teenagers. They want to run fast and to be adults. For what? Because I don't believe that your life is my. I know it's, to be a boy is difficult. To be a teenager is so awful. But to be an adult, I don't believe that actually in Spain, be an adult is nice. I prefer to have, I prefer to spend my free times playing with toys until to be adult. Because
Because
I don't like,
in a way, our jobs allow us to keep in touch with our inner kids.
yes, probably,
I love that. You know, working in animation and comics and movies in general, because it allows me to stay in touch with that and sometimes remember
yes.
what used to drive me.
Do not forget what is the real world, and or choose what is the real world from you, because when you have memory, you I think you have the capacity to to choose the world you want to, in the choose the world you want to live, because you have memory and you know what, as you say, you know what happened behind the curtain, behind the 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 theater. You see the scenario, but you know behind it something, and the people only want to see the main scenario. They don't want to see behind, and behind you are a mix between many things. We have your background, you are anyone, you are nothing. And sometimes I believe that in our country, people don't want to remember because they don't want to remember who they was. And hey, that's the thing. You are who you are because you have this background, good, regular, or bad. The last question is always the same. I know this a little bit tricky, but uh, I think I told you in the first meeting when I offered this possibility. From the last, I think 5, 6, 7 years, from the kids between 10 to 12 years old, it's possible to choose Spanish as the fourth language. They study Finnish, Swedish, normally English, and now it's possible to choose French, German, but many people choose learn Spanish. And now there are many people here in Finland that read Spanish, understand Spanish, and in many ways read Spanish and speak Spanish. I think in some way much better than us. uh, and for that reason, I know that your comics are all in Spanish, but now there are more possibilities to the Finnish guy to read your comic book. What do you say to one person that now is see this meeting to spend time looking for your comic book and spend money in your comic book? How do you sell your comic to someone that have no idea that who is Jaime Visedo and what Jaime Visedo do? But now, because the Helsinki Comic Fair uh, have this topic about the reality, the real life, the real world, the real society in comic book. You are one of the best example because you write about the how to be a father and the paternity leave and everything around. How do you sell your job to some Finnish people that see this meeting?
Okay, so you want me to sell my own work?
Yes, exactly. Normally this is my job, but it's nice that someone do
No, because
to, to
you know
tell.
who does that very well. My son does that very well. He's my uh, basically he's the one selling the book in Comic Cons and things like that. He goes with the book and grabs parents and people. And you know what he says? He says something like, uh, "This book is all real, is all natural, and comes from the heart."
That's
uh,
good. Good advertise. It's a
and it's true. So what I can say is this book is really um, all all real stories and love that I put into it, and as I said, I hope that everyone can be related to it. Not only parents,
Mhm.
also not only people that are already parents, but people who want to be parents someday, and also people who want to be parents and they don't
Exactly.
want to be parents, because
Yeah.
in a way they can find. I mean, these are very human history stories. Sorry, it's human stories with a you know the touch of the daily life, so to say, and yeah, I mean, I'm not really good at selling, I think,
No,
but
no, but no, but
but
the your
I'm,
son is
I'm
really
speaking from
good.
yeah, I'm speaking
Tell
from
tell him that because my background is in publicity and public relations. Your son know how to use the tools, how to use
does that
the
very
word.
well.
That's the thing. But it's true. Is
And then he also says, and I'm the protagonist.
no, no. This is I think the more important. But it's true. This is not only from the people that have kids, they want to be a father on they waiting to be a father. It's good from the people don't even think about to be a father.
Yeah, I think it's for everyone. It really is for everyone. I've had feedback from a lot of people that I've never met, and that's probably the most um, most grateful thing that makes me feel grateful. It's the fact that people comes to me or writes to me saying how much they felt touched by what by what I did, by my experience
Hmm.
in these books, and how people felt inspired, or how people saw a little glimpse of their future when they were about to have a kid,
Exactly.
or how people relate to things because they happen to them. Maybe some people whose kids are already grown ups, and they're like, "Yeah, I remember that this happened," and also a lot of people that came to me saying that they don't have kids, they've never thought of having kids, they will not have kids, but they had a lot of love with it.
Mm. Yes,
Laughed
that's the thing.
really
I
hard.
think this is, but
Uh,
this is a good advertise campaign. Trust me, because I have enough background to say that this is, if you put all this sentence in a advertise, in a poster, or in some clip, I think this is that really good advertise. Trust me, because this is true, and not only because I have similar background, not only because I am a father too, because and not only because I believe the comics is a good way to say something, to count stories. It's because I really believe that you make something that is possible to read for someone with 10 years old, 15, 20, even 30, 40, 60, or 80 years old, because you always find something that you remember. You maybe you forget, but when you read and say, "Hey, I know this is true," because when my kid now is 35 years old, or 40 years old, but when he was 6 months, do exactly the same thing. And this is the I think this is the for me the best way to finish all this meeting, because I now this event, the complement of all these virtual meetings, a big retrospective, a virtual exhibition with the job of all the guests, and I put all the information about your job, and choose some image. You send me a lot of material. I need to choose exactly the same image, and I put all the information about your job and how it's possible to order. This is possible to order through the Dolmen editorial webpage. If you had the opportunity, even you don't understand too much, you understand Spanish, but not too much. Sometimes you don't need to understand, because only with the draw you understand what happened.
um, Let me say also, I actually, a lot of friends of mine, people that I know in the UK, and they don't speak any Spanish, and they bought the book and they've enjoyed the book,
Yes,
or
that's
so
the
they say. Obviously, they don't understand everything, because there's a lot of things that are, you need to speak Spanish or read Spanish to understand. But a lot of that, a lot of the book is just, it's visual. And I try to have, and there's a lot of tender moments
hmm
and visual um, gags that you can hopefully. I'd like to think that you can understand mostly everything just through the
yes.
images,
If
because
you
that's what I
understand
do.
if you understand Spanish, you understand in some way everything. But you don't. Sometimes you don't. You don't need to. You need to use your imagination. That's the good thing. I think this is something I really like from comics, from movies, from things. Sometimes it's good when you use your imagination. You don't need to explain everything. You don't need to put subtitles in everything. You don't need to put text in every panel of a comic book.
Thing is,
Sometimes you use your imagination and you write
yeah,
your own story.
I'm not a
Because
writer. I draw, so that's the way I express myself. So what you're gonna find here is mostly drawings with some text, but mostly drawings.
mm,
And the script writers, I always say, when they read me for the script, for the for writing the book, I would say I haven't written anything. I've just drawn what my little script writers have created for me. So my
exactly.
script writers are my children, and I just put that in pictures.
Exactly, and that is a well. This is a good advertising too. Trust me. You need to tell. You need to tell with Dolmen and say, "Hey, pay me not only because I am the author, I am the good advertise from the company. It's not I told with your editor because I know your editor and I know your editor and all the people around your job, and it's good for you. And say, hey, you need to pay not only because it's a really good comic book artist, because it's a really good advertising manager, and hey, you need to pay from that because he sold his job in the Finnish market, and I think this is really good. Jaime, this has been a long meeting, but I hope the people enjoy
I hope so.
almost the half I enjoyed to talk with you. I hope you finish the third album because I want to read, and I enjoy a lot today when I read the second issue because in a few months I have two two kids, not one, uh, and I hope that all this job help to promote your job outside Spain because at last this was the main idea behind all this idea. When the Spanish ambassador told me, I explained my idea, and he told me, "Hey, I really like, but you need to understand that you need to show the job of the Spanish author here in a different country with a different culture, with a different language, and you need to do in the best way possible." And I hope that you are happy with my job, and especially the people that spend time to see all the meetings in this Helsinki Comic Festival understand that my idea is to promote in the best way possible thing that I believe, not only because I believe are good jobs, I believe it's possible to understand not only in our country, it's possible to understand in our country. You say that many people in United Kingdom understand, and it's possible to understand in Finland. Even our mentality is not exactly the same, and the background, the society is not exactly the same. I believe that every far in Finland, if read your job, probably find the same thing that I found, because when you are afar, you have the same problems and you are afraid of everything and you never know what happened. Not tomorrow, you never know what happened the next hour. And when you read the first and the second book, you understand that at the last we are the same. We speak different language, you eat different food, you live in a different country, but at the last, a kid is a kid here in Spain and in
Yeah.
any place of the world.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Uh, Take care yourself because the pandemic unfortunately do not finish. And I hope we will have the opportunity to meet again when you publish the next chapter of La Vida Padre, in that case,
Hope
the
so.
third issue.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful and happy to have been here, and I really appreciate everything you've done. And yeah, again, thank you so much, and thank you
You
for
are you are
letting
very
me be
welcome.
part of the of this.
Of this crazy idea that after 2 years is something much more than idea. It's something real in some way, even it's a virtual version of a comic book festival, but it's one choice. We live in the 21st century, and we need to use the tool we have, and this tool is
Definitely, yeah.
almost so nice that when you have the opportunity to meet with the author in front of you, at last the
Hope so.
idea is
Yeah,
to
I'll,
this
I'll
kind of things.
I'll be able to to go there to Helsinki.
I hope
Mm,
that every author I told you send me the same. I hope, or we will hope, the opportunity to meet with you and the other guys in Finland. I hope that the situation changes, and when you finish the third book, you have the opportunity to move to Finland and present in front of the people here in Helsinki. Now
so
this is
yeah, I
the
really hope so.
option. We choose this option, and I hope the people enjoy. And thank you very much from everyone here in Finland to spend time and try to know much more what the comic book artists do in Spain actually, and I hope they enjoy. See you in the next meeting, and enjoy the Helsinki Comic Festival 2021.
Thank you. Thank you very much.